You're claiming that you are me, Frank Gilman, but you are just a machine.
And you are just air.
H.P. Lovecraft is everyone's favorite racist.
You can find adaptations of his work everywhere, and they don't really show any sign of stopping soon. That's not really a complaint. I've never read any of his works, because I don't read.
But I still find the ideas behind cosmic horror pretty interesting.
Unknowable forces which are too terrible to be comprehended by mankind. Sounds good to me. Like I said, I haven't ever read anything by him. I did take a quick look at the Wikipedia article for the story this is based on. All the main ideas from the novella are there, but the design team behind Conarium added their own little
Something into the mix.
which I think was for the better.
Actually, plot-wise, all of the most interesting things that Conarium offers are not from the novella and are entirely new. Now, it's possible that Lovecraft purists will hate the change, but
I think it's brilliant. The story follows Frank Gilman. He wakes up next to the strange device in a research base in the Arctic. He has no idea what he's doing there, and only the vague notion that some people should probably be there with him. He sets off to find out what the hell is going on, and along the way he uncovers a bunch of weirdness, which might make you kind of grateful you're not him right now. Really, this game is about venturing into the unknown, and this idea is really embodied in the plot and the way it unfolds, and the less you know about the game, the better. Really, if you're thinking about playing this game, the best decision you could make right now is to just stop watching now. But if you're still not convinced, then keep watching. I'll keep off any real spoilers until the end, and I'll give you a fair warning before that happens. Frank himself, well, there's not much to him. He's a researcher. Yeah. And he loves writing in his journal.
Is there a problem with that?
What you find out about his background and how he got to where he is now is pretty interesting, but his actual characterization leaves a lot to be desired. If you ask me to tell you about his personality, all I could say is that he's a pretty posh bloke. His voice acting is not amazing. He speaks in this kind of faux received pronunciation, and how he responds to the situation he's in is not quite on the level like a human being would.
My mind is cloudy. All I can remember is the successful establishment of the Upper Antarctic base. And after that, nothing is clear in my mind. So this is the strong light that can be seen from ground level.
You know, I do understand that in a game like this, the main character is really just a vehicle to tell the story. His performance is not really the focus. It would have still been nice to have a bit more substance behind him. A bit more oomph. Because right now, if he was a biscuit, he would be a very dry one. There's not that many other characters to speak of. The other members of the research team aren't really there. Although, you do get communication from one of them, Dr. Faust, but these are pretty few and far between. There's a few more things you'll run into along the way. I'll speak about those a little bit later. So anything Lovecraftian will probably make you think of horror, and that makes sense because Lovecraft is known as a horror writer. A lot of things can be debated, but this is not one of them. Conarium, however, is not so much of a horror game. It's more of an adventure game that's dipping its toe in horror. Actually, the biggest fright I got in the whole game was when I walked past a mirror and saw my own face. There's a few scares here and there, but on the whole I wasn't really frightened. I was a bit unnerved, maybe. Like, the atmosphere got to me, but I wasn't frightened. Actually, there's only 5 ways you can die in the whole game, and you can get an achievement for that. 2 of those deaths are basically deliberate, so yeah, there's not much to worry about. You can just take your time and complete the game at your own pace. Being an adventure game, you're going to run into some puzzles. The ones in this game are fairly straightforward. There's 1 or 2 that gave me a bit of a headache, but on the whole, not too bad. There's a few item fetch puzzles where you know, the classic pick up a specific item, use it on a different specific item to go further. A lot of other games involve a bunch of guesswork. You just kind of mash random items together until you get a result. This one keeps it fairly simple. If you have the relevant item in your inventory, it will be used automatically when you find the right place for it. I think in this case it works. I think puzzles aren't really the primary focus of this game, it's the story, and so it works here. If you had to spend ages just ramming things together, it would probably take away from the pace of the story and the immersion. Just while I'm on the technical stuff, I should mention there are 1 or 2 bugs. One thing that was a constant issue was that my cursor kept popping up on the side of my screen, and this happened all the time. At first I didn't really mind, but after a few hours it just kind of got on my nerves. That was the biggest thing. It didn't stop me from enjoying myself, but it was a bit of a bother. There was also this weird physics glitch that only happened once. I won't hold it against the game. This was made by a very small team. I think like 3 people, so I'm inclined to give it a pass for stuff like this. Also, look at how long this ladder is. Good golly. At least you can skip it on the way up. Graphically, I think this game looks excellent. You end up going through a surprising amount of environments, and you can tell that this is where the bulk of the effort was placed. Every new place is interesting and detailed, and
It makes you want to know more about where you are.
who did this? Why?
What is all this crap?
Tell me more.
They're easily the best thing about the game. I never felt like they just hit copy-paste and threw their hands up.
There are a few weaker points to the graphics. A lot of the levels are filled with these smoky particles, which I had mixed feelings about.
They worked in some cases, but in other cases I just felt the game looked blurry. I guess overall they did help improve the feel of the game.
But they didn't always improve the look. They also should have really worked on how the flashlight reflects. Because look at this bloom on the axe. It just looks kind of silly. It's even worse when you're looking at a book or something. I can't even see what's going on here. Some of the character models are good, others are less good. It didn't bother me that much, because there's honestly not that many character models throughout the game. Actually, what you're going to be looking at most of the time are item models, which are pretty good. They even make you inspect all of them up close. You know they're proud of themselves. Like, hey, look at this mask. Pretty cool, right? I really like the music. It's understated, but it's memorable. It's got a nice kind of otherworldly theme to it. I'll play a few of them now.
I believe no more can we harbor ourselves on the safest shores, for there are things that cannot be undone.
There's a couple creepy noisy tracks. Alright, so now I'm going to answer the question which has probably been floating around in your head. What is actually happening? If you'd rather not know, then skip to the time shown on the screen now. Here we go. The start of the game has you walking around this weird kind of dream sequence.
There's a guy at the end of the hallway who has no face.
After that, you wake up with your only goal being to find out what's going on. So as Frank searches the research base, he goes down into deeper levels with some pretty weird stuff inside, including some funny hallucinations and this pot plant, which makes him trip out. He takes an elevator down even further where he finds these ruins. He investigates the ruins and keeps having flashbacks, which probably indicate that he's been here before and he's just retracing his steps. Early on, Frank picks up this comms radio, which most of the time just picks up weird noises, except for sometimes when Dr. Faust gets through and tells Frank to keep going. Into the unknown. The further he goes, the stranger things become and the worse the hallucinations become. He starts seeing strange statues, murals, and mummified corpses. Corpses which are distinctly lizard-like. There's also these flying glowing things which apparently have the power to bring things back to life. Or maybe not. As you explore, it becomes more clear that the ruins were built by these lizard folk called Shoggoths. The Shoggoths were created by the flying dudes when they arrived to Earth from space. The flying guys are called Elder Things by the scientists. The Shoggoths worship the Elder Things for many years as their superiors and creators. They built 5 of these giant temples around the world, but most of these have fallen into disrepair or have crumbled completely. Eventually, Frank finds this giant room which leads to a hallway, the same hallway from the beginning of the game. And this is where things get pretty interesting. So you open your eyes, which leads you into a house. The bags are all packed for a big trip, so it looks like this is the past. In the basement you find this thing, you touch it and boom, you're in a tomb. You go through the tomb, it starts to crumble, something chases you, and
You wake up in a black void and go through this portal.
so what was all that? Well, this isn't the first time you've gone through into the old house in some weird flashbacks. What's the deal?
The thing that Frank and his colleagues were so intent on researching was a way to leave the confines of the human consciousness. This was why they had that device at the beginning of the game.
As well as this glove that Frank is wearing. Apparently they managed to do what they set out to do. But this also attracted the attention of the Elder Things, who don't really appreciate some random humans stepping in on their territory. The Elder Things actually speak to Frank indirectly and tell him there's a price for the knowledge that they have been seeking. This price is essentially confirmed when you find Dr. Faust. He's just kicking back. He's seen behind the veil of reality, and it's caused his whole body to shut down. He tells you the same thing will happen to you, and you can drink this concoction that he has next to it, saying it will help with the pain but not stop the eventual death. You drink the potion, collapse, and wake up in a house with Dr. Faust, and him telling you that the answers you seek lie beneath the desert. Sounds pretty familiar to the ruins we were just in a few moments earlier, right? Well, that's the thing. The knowledge they've attained has caused the laws of their reality to crumble, leaving them trapped in time and doomed to retrace their steps forever and ever. Amen. That's one way it could go. The other option is that you don't drink his funny potion and you carry on. You awaken this golem and it helps you find this giant pulsing sphere. You touch the sphere and awaken. Looking at a map of the stars, which starts spinning and spinning. You reach out your hand and watch your corporeal body dissolve. When you open your eyes again, you're now a reptile, and you're in a pod. When the pod opens, you look upon a new, strange planet. Things are serene, but also confusing. Roll credits. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'm not so sure. The theory I like the most, which I thought of myself, is that Frank has effectively escaped the Matrix. He has seen through the veil of reality into the really real. People are actually lizards. Life is a lie. But you know, with a game like this, your mileage may vary. There's a lot of room for interpretation. So in closing, I have to say Conarium is good. It's short, but it's good. Actually, I think it's as long as it needs to be. Really, you're playing a game like this for the story, not so you can do hours and hours of puzzles. There's other games for that. There's a few good surprises along the way, and imagery which will probably stick with you once you finished it. At least it did for me. You can pick it up on Steam, GOG, Epic Store, and even on consoles. Weirdly enough, I've seen that the price seems to vary a lot between places. Mostly it's shown as $20, which honestly I think is a bit too much. This game is 5 hours at a push, and as much as I like it, you can definitely get better deals for your $20. The Epic Store has it for about $7 or $8, which I think is a fair price. The only downside to buying it on the Epic Store is you can't get the soundtrack along with it. You can get that from GOG or Steam though if you're willing to shell out the extra cash, or you can just wait for it to go on sale. Anyway, that's all from me. Stay cool. I'll see you next time.